Hello, welcome to this week's podcast. Welcome to the Focused Mindset podcast. I know you have lots of choices, and I'm glad that you're here today with me because we're going to be talking about the things I figured out that didn't work to help us have great conversations. And I was thinking and reflecting upon this last couple of years in my life that's been pretty amazing, as most of you guys know. And I thought, how did I get here? Do you guys ever think about that, where you are in your life, and really kind of think, how did I get here? There's been times in my life that I'm in a devastating moment, and everything that I had planned had completely fallen apart. If I think about it, I can bring myself there in an instant. And in those moments, I ask that same question, how did I get here? And I think it was a valuable question, because without it, I wouldn't have been able to reflect. I didn't want to stay in that moment, but reflect and say, okay, what do I need to do differently? I can't stay here in this place of being like, how did I get here, poor me, and think that things are going to get better. And I think it's always important for us to realize when we're having that moment, but I'm in a different type of moment today. I'm kind of thinking, how did I get here? Where about a year ago, I was standing on the TEDx stage, talking about how you can have great conversations even in the most challenging situations. Something that I am so passionate about. Something that I've messed up a lot along the way, but that I've continued to put my energy into and my focus into. How did I get there? Up on stage in front of all these people, and now it's on the internet with more and more views. How did I get to publish a book on hope? 2, 1 in Spanish? I don't speak Spanish. I wish I could speak Spanish is what I do. And also having this podcast. This podcast that's on numerous occasions reached the top 10 charts in Australia and then the top 100 of the United States. What? And I trace it back to my school counseling, the very, very first day that I was a school counselor, when I had one awkward conversation that changed my life, because it got me to ask an essential question that would drive me through my entire career and still does to this day as a school counselor. I remember it so vividly, and you guys probably have had a conversation like this that you hoped would just go super duper, you're so excited about it, and then it doesn't. In fact, it's terrible. I walked into the staff lounge, very first day of school counseling. Oh, I was excited. I knew I couldn't wait to meet everybody. I thought, here to change the world, baby. And as I walked in, I heard somebody say, oh, we have a new school counselor. I thought, perfect. Headed in that direction, just in time for another teacher to say, don't bother referring your kids over there, and nothing they say ever makes a difference. And then I'm standing right in front of them. They all look up at me. I had to say something, and I don't know what you'd say, but I just said, oh, hi, I'm that new counselor, and put out my hand to shake one of their hands. And it was awkward, but after we got through that, of course, they were like, oh, hi. One of them that didn't say that comment was like, oh, I want to talk to you about a kid, and just kind of made a look to the lady who had said it. Awkward is like, not the way that I wanted to introduce myself. Nonetheless, like I said, it allowed me to go back to my brand new little office. I was just fixing up, making it so cute, my sand table and my squishies and everything that helps kids feel amazing. And I just sat there, not a single kid in my office. And I asked myself, how can I do things differently than whatever has been done before to have that person say that about counseling? I began to ask, how can I have conversations that make a difference? What can I do to make sure that beyond a shadow of a doubt that I have conversations that matter? And I started deciding that, you know what? Every conversation, I'm going to document it, I'm going to evaluate it, and I'm going to follow up with it to see if it made a difference. Not that it made me feel good, not that it made them feel good, not that the teacher said thank you and that there was smiles, but did it result in lasting change, or at least temporary change? And so I started having conversations, and I'll tell you what, one of the things that I found out first is all the things that didn't make a difference. And some of it made me feel pretty crappy to face. And I wanted to talk about this with you because I'm going to be talking about it in just a couple of days at the Student Mental Wellness Conference, the 8th annual. I'm so excited to be able to speak at that event on Friday morning. And you guys may be listening to this long after that. But I'm going to be talking about not only the things that went right in conversation, but first, what did I find out that went wrong? And I'll tell you right now, the first thing that I found out that I want to share with you, and it wasn't in this order necessarily, is that not that the conversations that I thought were going to make the biggest impact were sometimes the ones that I saw no results from. And so I thought, is what I say not even making a difference? Does it even matter here? And it was a little frustrating at first, but then I realized, you know what? I know that I need to develop an expertise that will allow myself to make a difference in conversations. And come to find out, it's not going to happen just by the words I'm going to say, just by the things that I say. There needs to be a level of trust, buy-in, caring, all these other things. And I thought, well, how can you do that quickly? How can you don't have a whole lot of time. And finally, it came down to 3 things that I knew that I want to share with you are not the deciding factors on whether a conversation is going to make a difference or not. Number 1, if the person that you're talking to is talking about the problem, the whole conversation, that's a big that's going nowhere. And if you're continuing to talk about the problem and, oh, what happened next? And what happened next? And, oh, wow, how did you feel about that? Okay, they might feel like they've vented, and venting has its place. But if your goal is to make lasting change and have them go out and make a change in their behavior, not going to happen based on just that. The second thing I learned that does not work is offering help. How sad was that when I figured that out? Offering help. I was a professional help giver. When my kids were little, I would say that my first 2 kids, my third one, not so much because she came 8 years after the first 2. But with the first 2, man, I felt as though it was, gosh, I'm a school counselor. I know how to solve these problems. And if I heard them fight, I would jump in and help them, in quotes, to solve the problem by telling them what they needed to do. And they would listen and they would nod, and they're fighting just a couple minutes later. Same way with my counseling. If I jumped in with a teacher and said, you know what, let me just do this lesson for you, my thought was that that means they're going to be like, oh yay, let me take diligent notes. Let me so I could do this. In my very next lesson, I'm going to follow how she's doing this so I can do it myself. And instead, they were taking the time to check their email or do lesson plans, going to the bathroom. And the only thing that happened by me continuously offering that kind of help was that they just kept asking me to come in to do that kind of work. It never translated to lasting change in them and maybe how they were approaching their lessons. Which is what I really wanted. I'm like, wow, I hope that this helps them. You know, their idea of help and my idea of help was something totally different. They were like, sure, take this off my plate, do it for me, and I'll move on. What they really needed was, the real help that they needed was not me just modeling and doing it. My thoughts were that that's what I was doing by helping. There was a huge disconnect with help. You have to be careful with help. It's just not going to be the ticket for lasting change. Let me help you. Let me do it for you. And what's the third thing I noticed? Well, it's giving advice. Giving advice absolutely did nothing for lasting change. And this is the toughest one, the toughest pill to swallow, because I mean, especially as a school counselor, man, we have our SEL lessons, we're trained, we've read so many books, going through our entire master's program, some of us doctorates. We're like, oh, I know what this person should do. And I would get stuck in that loop of, as they're talking to me, I'm filing through my advice and I'm deciding what I'm going to tell them that they need to do. And unfortunately, the moment that they shared their problem and that I just told them what to do, they would just stop and go, oh, this person's so smart, let me listen. Now and then they might try a strategy or two, but a lot of times it didn't make a big difference. Sometimes they didn't even remember my advice, especially with students. They're like, oh yeah, she had a lot of good advice. What was it? I don't remember. And it's really thanks to our memory. We forget most of what we see and hear. I mean, I know this conference I'm going to go to is going to be so packed with stuff. I was looking at all of the workshops. It's so much information that no human could take even a fourth of it in. And I might be sitting in a chair, but how much am I going to retain? In order to retain it, I'm going to need to what? Practice it, make it something that I try on my own, something I take action on myself. And in order for that to happen, it has to be such a message that rings true to me that I perk up and I listen in a different type of way. And I write it down and I review it later. And then, because that was personal to me, that information, whatever it might be that I get, that will stick. All the rest will fade into a blur. Not because I want it to, just because that's the way our human brain works. We remember what stands out, what's important, what surprises us, and what rings true to how we believe. Those three things. If what we say lines up, what somebody says lines up with what we believe, then we usually go, oh, wow. And I absolutely agree with that. And you lean in. Or if it surprises you, oh yeah, that was, take notice, brain, and it turns right on. Or if it deeply matters to me and it has made an impact to my heart, which usually kind of like happens with stories a lot, right? Which is why so many people tell stories when they're speaking. But anyways, if you are stuck and you're trying to say, I don't feel like my communication is making that much of an impact, take it from me and all of the conversations that I've documented to get to where I am today, that evaluate if you're making these three mistakes. Are you talking about the problem too long and clear till the end of the conversation? Are you constantly jumping to offer help, not letting them think for themselves and act for themselves? Or are you giving advice too much? Talking too much, listening not enough? If this is happening, it happens to all of us. It still happens to me now. I have to keep myself in check regularly, but it can change. And I know that as I did, it's when I found the solution-focused skills that I use today that make it so people come back and find me and talk to me about what we talked about. Even if it was one of 100 conversations that I had, they remember. And I know that that can happen more with you. I don't know who it is in your life that you want to make an impact with. It might just even be your partner. It might be your best friend that you want them to really get where you're coming from. Try stepping back and evaluating how you're communicating. And in the weeks to come, we're going to talk a little bit more about the things that did work. But preview, it's listening with an intention, with purpose, not just like hearing the words they're saying and mimicking it back, but listening. And if you're hoping that that person changes, we listen to find exceptions to all of that problem that's happening. They might say, almost every time I fail. And it's our job to say, but you picked yourself up and you're here right now. How did you do that? Or tell me about that time. Can you remember when you didn't fail? And all of a sudden, they see a way. They see, actually, their will to change begins to shift, and they see a way forward. And that's the definition of hope. When someone has agency, the will to move forward, and they have pathways they see pathways that they can take, multiple. That's the way. I see the way. Something happens, you see it in them, but really it walks with them. And it's that hope that's entered in. So as you go on with your day, and I'm about to head out to Anaheim to the conference, I hope that you can find new ways to communicate. And you know what? If you need a little boost, don't forget to jump over to Amazon, because there's 30 days to higher hope. And its companion is, oh my, that's upside down. The Spanish companion is out, and in November, oh my gosh, we're going to be doing some marketing. I'm going to bring on the wonderful gal that helped me with all of the translation with this book. You guys, it's hard when you speak Spanish to find someone to really translate things the way you want it to be translated. So you can find this on Amazon. I've been giving it to some of my friends. 30 días elevando tus esperanza. I have work to do, folks. But anyway, it's time for me to get going. I can't believe I spoke for I don't know, almost 16 minutes or so. Have a great day, guys. And until next time, live solution focused.